The United States and Iran are once again talking. This is a significant development. The two countries have been at odds for decades. There have been periods of intense hostility. Could this be the start of a new chapter? The road ahead will be challenging, but the potential rewards of peace are immense. The latest round of talks began in April 2025. They are taking place in Muscat, Oman, and Rome, Italy. These talks are a sign that both sides are willing to try again. The talks are being led by Steve Witkoff. He's a former Trump ally. Europe is not part of these discussions. This is a departure from the past. The US and Iran have a long history of mistrust. This goes back to the 1953 CIA-backed coup. The coup overthrew the democratically elected government of Iran. It installed the Shah as a pro-Western dictator. This event has cast a long shadow over US-Iran relations. The 2015 nuclear deal was a high point in recent relations. The deal was known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA. It offered Iran sanctions relief. In return, Iran agreed to limits on its nuclear program. The deal was working. International inspectors verified that Iran was complying with its commitments. The JCPOA was the culmination of years of diplomacy. It was a landmark achievement. The deal was signed in 2015. It was negotiated between Iran and the P5+1. This group included the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council. They are the US, UK, France, Russia, and China. Germany was also part of this group. Under the terms of the JCPOA, Iran agreed to strict limits on its nuclear program. Iran's uranium enrichment was capped at 3.67%. This is far below the level needed for a nuclear weapon. Iran also agreed to reduce its stockpile of enriched uranium, and it agreed to limit its research and development of centrifuges. These are machines used to enrich uranium. In exchange for these concessions, Iran received significant sanctions relief. Billions of dollars in frozen assets were released. Iran was also able to resume oil exports. The JCPOA was widely seen as a victory for diplomacy. It was a testament to the power of dialogue and engagement. The JCPOA was short-lived. In 2018, President Trump unilaterally withdrew the US from the deal. This was a major blow to the agreement. Trump called the JCPOA the worst deal ever. He argued that it did not go far enough in curbing Iran's nuclear ambitions. He also objected to the deal's sunset clauses. These clauses meant that some restrictions on Iran's nuclear program would expire after a certain number of years. Trump's decision to withdraw from the JCPOA was met with widespread criticism. US allies in Europe as well as Russia and China all condemned the move. They argued that it would make it harder to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. They also pointed out that Iran was in compliance with the deal. Trump's withdrawal from the JCPOA had a devastating impact on US-Iran relations. It also damaged America's credibility on the world stage. It showed that the US could not be trusted to keep its word. The withdrawal also paved the way for Iran to resume its nuclear activities. This has brought the region closer to the brink of conflict. The 1953 coup is a key event in understanding US-Iran relations. The US and UK orchestrated the coup. They wanted to protect their interests in Iran's oil industry. The coup overthrew the democratically elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh. He had nationalized Iran's oil industry. The coup installed the Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi as a pro-Western dictator. The Shah ruled Iran with an iron fist for 25 years. He was backed by the US, the Shah's secret police, the SAVAK, brutally repressed dissent. The US supported this. This period left a legacy of bitterness and resentment in Iran. The 1979 Islamic Revolution toppled the Shah. Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini came to power. The US embassy in Tehran was seized. American diplomats were held hostage for 444 days. This further strained relations. Since then, there have been periods of confrontation. There have also been missed opportunities for rapprochement. Section 5. A diplomatic dance. The road to Muscat and Rome. The Biden administration has been trying to revive the JCPOA since 2021. The talks have been indirect. They have been mediated by European officials. The talks have been stalled for months. This is due to several sticking points. One major obstacle has been Iran's demand that the US lift its designation of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, as a terrorist organization. This designation was imposed by the Trump administration. The Biden administration has been reluctant to lift the designation. It says that the IRGC is a terrorist organization. Another sticking point has been the issue of guarantees. Iran wants guarantees that the US will not withdraw from the deal again. The Biden administration says it cannot provide such guarantees. It argues that no US president can bind a future president to a particular course of action. Despite these challenges, there have been some glimmers of hope in recent weeks. In March 2025, Iran released 2 American prisoners. This was seen as a goodwill gesture. Section 6. The stakes at hand: regional security and global non-proliferation. A nuclear-armed Iran is a major concern for the United States and its allies. It would destabilize the Middle East. It could also trigger a regional nuclear arms race. Iran insists its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes, but its lack of transparency has fueled suspicions. Beyond the nuclear issue, the United States and Iran have a number of other areas of disagreement. These include Iran's support for terrorist groups like Hezbollah and Hamas. They also include Iran's ballistic missile program, and they include Iran's human rights record. A diplomatic solution to the Iranian nuclear issue is the best way to prevent a catastrophic war. However, the Biden administration must proceed with caution. It must not make concessions that would jeopardize United States national security interests. Section 7. The path forward: building a durable agreement. What are the prospects for a new nuclear deal? There are reasons for both optimism and pessimism. On the one hand, both sides have an interest in reaching an agreement. The United States wants to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. Iran wants sanctions relief. On the other hand, there is a great deal of mistrust between the two sides. This mistrust is rooted in history. It has been compounded by years of animosity and broken promises. Any new agreement will need to address the concerns of all parties. It will need to be verifiable, and it will need to be enforceable. The United States must be willing to compromise. It must also be prepared to walk away from the table if Iran is not serious about reaching a deal. Section 8. Lessons from history: the importance of patience and understanding. The United States must learn from the mistakes of the past. The 2015 JCPOA was flawed, but it was far better than no deal at all. The United States must avoid making the same mistakes again. The United States must also avoid the temptation to try to isolate Iran. This policy has failed in the past. It is only likely to backfire again. The United States should instead work with its allies to build a coalition of countries that are committed to preventing Iran from developing nuclear weapons. The United States must also understand Iran's perspective. Iran is a proud nation with a long history. It is not going to be bullied into submission. Section 9. A new chapter: the future of United States-Iran relations. The future of United States-Iran relations is uncertain. A new nuclear deal is possible, but it is far from guaranteed. The Biden administration faces a difficult task. It must balance the need for diplomacy with the need to protect United States' national security interests. The stakes are high. A nuclear-armed Iran would be a disaster for the Middle East and the world. The United States must do everything in its power to prevent this from happening, but it must do so in a way that does not make the situation worse. The world is watching these talks closely. They represent a test for diplomacy. They are a chance to see if the United States and Iran can overcome their differences and build a more peaceful future.